So retired FBI agent Don Adams is here, blowing the whistle. He has a lot of courage. Sir, thank you for coming on with us.
Thanks, Alex.
You've got the floor. The website's adamsjfk.com. You got a book coming out in the next few months. You've also got a DVD breaking this down, but you've got the floor. Go over it, sir.
All right, I will. My investigation started on November the 13th of 1963. I received a telephone call from the agent in charge in the Atlanta FBI office. He told me that they had just received information from the Secret Service of a conspiracy discussion that took place up in Indianapolis, Indiana, at a meeting of a large group of very strong right-wingers. And as a result of it, there was one of the people in a discussion of four people who was an informant for the Miami Intelligence Police Department as well as for the FBI. His name was William Somerset. The principal person that was talking in the group of four was Joseph Adams Miltier. Joseph Adams Miltier and Somerset with the other two fellows, they planned, they discussed about the assassination of President Kennedy when he left Homestead Air Force Base in Miami, Florida, and traveled up Collins Avenue to the Kennedy compound in Palm Beach, Florida. They were going to take and secrete a man who was willing to give his life up in a palm tree, and then when the motorcade with the open limousine came by, they were going to go ahead and shoot the president, and the person was a sniper in the Second World War, and so they planned on killing him there. If that failed for whatever reason, they had a backup plan at the White House behind Lafayette Park, which is right across the street from the White House, and they had purchased or rented an apartment or an office, and they had purchased a high-powered rifle with a tripod, and they were going to shoot the president when he came out onto the portico of the White House or if he walked the grounds. And that was their backup plan. So all this was discussed, and as a result of it, the Secret Service called RSAC and asked for me to ask for an investigation to be conducted. And the SAC called me and said, Don, since Miltier lives in Quitman, Georgia, in your territory, I want you to do a full background on him. So I contacted the police chief down there, William Elliott, and Bill and I went to work on Miltier, and we spent about 5 days working full-time, gathering as much intelligence as we possibly could on him. Once we acquired all the intelligence that we could get, I then took and prepared a report, a pretty extensive report. I acquired a lot of handout material from him, which he mimeographed, and he handed out every Saturday to all of the people that would take it. And I took a lot of that material from him, and there was an awful lot of bitterness and indications, not direct threats, but implied threats against the president and Bobby and them. So I took all that material and I put it all together and then hand-carried my report. I wrote my report and I hand-carried it up to Atlanta, gave it to the boss, and then turned it over to the Secret Service, and we were through with it. That was our total investigation. I finished probably around the 18th or 19th. I can't give you an exact date, but around then. And then, of course, on November 22nd at 1:30 in the afternoon, my partner and I were riding in a car, and an announcement came out and said that the president had been shot in Dallas. And then there was a radio code for Code 36 for us to go to the Thomasville, Georgia Highway Patrol post, and that they had a message for me. So I went there, identified myself, and he then said to me, the sergeant behind the desk, that we were to go to the Department of Agriculture. They have a teletype they want me to read. So we took off, went to the Department of Agriculture, and once we got inside and looked at the teletype read, "The president is dead. Call your special agent in charge in Atlanta immediately." So then I was shocked and devastated because here it is so close to what I was doing, and now they're talking about to call the boss and that. So I called my boss, and he says, find Miltier wherever he is and hold him for the Secret Service. And I'm devastated because I'm thinking I must have screwed up somehow or made a mess of something, or something happened because of the close proximity and time. I went out and I started looking for Miltier, hunting him through all of his haunts and wherever he was. And I went from November 22nd till November the 27th and located him on the 27th. The first indication that I had that there was something going wrong was that my agent in charge told me that when you interview Miltier, you can only ask these 5 questions and nothing more. And I queried my boss, and I said, boss, wait a minute, we're passing up a very important opportunity here to find out who he associated with, where he went, who he met in his travels, and everything else, and maybe I can get a lot of information from him. He said, I only want you to ask these 5 questions and nothing more. So I did. I mean, when we interviewed him, I took the statements on those 5 questions. He denied any involvement in the assassination, and one of them was concerning Martin Luther King. If there was any threats on him, and he denied any of that information. And as a result of it, I called my boss, and the boss said, go ahead and release him since he didn't give you anything of any positive nature in that, and the Secret Service will contact you if they decide they want him located and they want to talk to him. And that's the last I heard of him. And I forgot all about it. And then 7 months later, I was transferred to Dallas, Texas. When I got to Dallas, Texas, the first thing that my boss said to me was, I want you to look at the Zapruder film. I went in and looked at the Zapruder film, and when I looked at the Zapruder film, I saw the president take his hands and go up towards his throat with his hands, and I made a comment with 2 senior agents sitting there with me, and I said, hell, he didn't get shot from the back, he got shot from the front. And I was cautioned by one of the agents and said, Don, the Warren Commission's already in here working to get this thing established in that, and I would kind of hold your comments to yourself. I left there a couple of days later with 2 other senior agents and went to the book depository. When I got to the book depository, I looked out the window and looked down on Elm Street, and there was a tree in full foliage. And I asked the 2 agents, I said, was that tree bare at the time when the assassination took place? And they said, no, the timing is such, it's not like you have back at home in Ohio. The leaves were still on there in November, and they're still on in June.
Yeah, live oaks drop their leaves in the summer.
Yes, okay, which they did do. So as a result of it, I made a comment, and I said, there's no way in the world, if the foliage is all up there, there's no way in the world that this individual, Oswald, or no, he wasn't named at that time, but whoever the individual was that did the shooting in that he, oh no, I'm sorry, his name was already identified 6 months later. But anyway, this individual could not have possibly made those shots, three shots in 7.5 seconds. And again, I was cautioned and said, be careful of what you say. So then that was my completion as far as I covered a couple of leads on the assassination when I worked in Dallas, and then subsequently I made my transfers and stuff, went back to Ohio, and forgot all about Miltier. In November of 1992, at Christmas time, we had a get-together at a house there, and one of the fellows that was there, it was the son of a friend of mine. He said, Mr. Adams, I understand that you're involved in the assassination investigation, and I'm a buff for that. Could you talk with me about it? I did, told him the whole story I just told you, and he said, fine, thank you very much. And then he said, I'm reading a book in my home in Houston. When I finish it, I'll send it to you. So about a month later, I received a package from him, and inside was the book. I opened up the book, and the name of the book was High Treason. And it was written by Robert Groden and William Livingston. And when I opened up that, there was a paste of notes on the inside cover, and it said, Don Adams, Joseph A. is mentioned in the details, or in the appendix, good reading, Larry. So then when I opened it up and went to the index, I was thinking to myself, hell, there's a lot of Joseph A's, and I never used his last name when I talked to the group at Larry's house. So I figured, he's just got somebody else. But when I went to the index, it had Joseph Adams Miltier. in the index. I immediately went to the appendix. The appendix in there talked in terms of a tape-recorded conversation. And I want all your listeners to understand this. On November the 9th of 1963, 2 weeks approximately, 2 weeks before the assassination, Joseph Adams Miltier, in a tape-recorded conversation that was done by the Miami Intelligence Police Unit, they placed a recorder in Somerset's apartment, and he was their informant, and they tape-recorded the conversation. And in that conversation, Miltier said that we're going to kill him from an office building with a high-powered rifle. And then Somerset said to him, are you sure that you... He said, oh, yes. He said, I'm sure it's in the works.
Let me stop you right there for just a second. We're speaking with FBI agent Don Adams. This is amazing information. And in a moment, we're going to play a clip from the audio tape made by the Intelligence Bureau there in Miami, Florida. In fact, let's go ahead now and play a clip of this tape. So, because separately, you've got FBI agent Don Adams in Georgia investigating this guy before it happens. Then he learns this guy's shooting his mouth off so much and hanging out with these groups in Miami that we now know were planning it, headed up, of course, by famous CIA Black Op commander E. Howard Hunt, who ran assassinations worldwide, deathbed confession, talking about how it was planned in Miami. Here he is in Florida, Joseph Adams Miltier, saying to the police undercover, yeah, we're going to kill him in Dallas, and we're going to kill him with a rifle. And then later, the cops go back and get another interview, and he's saying, see, I told you we were going to kill him. You think I was playing games, boy? Let's go ahead and play that audio. Here it is.
But the most startling discovery was a tape recording captured by Miami intelligence officers November 9th, 1963, just weeks before Dallas. Miltier is talking to the informant, William Somerset.
Why the hell you figure the best way would be to get from an office building with a high-powered rifle? And they're going to really try to kill him.
The FBI headquarters and Secret Service both had that tape within days.
It should have stopped the president from traveling instantly.
But they didn't.
And he says he was jubilant.
Bragging to Somerset, you thought I was kidding when I said he would be killed from a window with a high-powered rifle. Despite all of that, Miltier was never even mentioned in the Warren Commission report.
When Hoover set up the propaganda in the FBI, don't embarrass the FBI. That was his rules. And you didn't. So they ordered everything put into the archives and to be forgotten about it.
But Don can't forget and hopes something is done before the truth is buried forever.
I mean, when we die off, when we're gone, there's not going to be anybody who's going to sit here and tell you these things.
All right, going back now to retired FBI agent Don Adams, that must have hit you like a thunderbolt when all this came out, that other police agencies, had the guy talking about how they were going to kill him in Dallas and then bragging after the fact, I told you we were going to kill him. I mean, this is open and shut, isn't it?
Yes, it devastated me to have that type of positive information on a tape recording by the two people that we were dealing with as far as that time element is concerned. And then for him to make that positive statement, he should have been stopped. The president's travel should have been stopped immediately, and he should have not gone to Dallas.
Well, Don, the real issue here is, and of course you've researched this, you know about it, the black Secret Service agent that knew that was coming in Chicago, so they moved it from Chicago to Dallas. And, of course, he said that decades ago, and then documents did come out. And then there's a deathbed confession by E. Howard Hunt, the famous Black Op head of state assassin squad leader. It says, yeah, we were in Miami for the big event, and LBJ was, running the big event, and I was there kind of on the sideline, and then we were going to be doing it in Chicago, but then it got moved to Dallas. I mean, we've just got it all right there.
Yeah, it's amazing. I heard about Hunt's statements and that. I've never listened to it personally, but when you start tying all the knots together and that, you're going to come up with an answer. And all this information that they had at their hands, I got none of it. I knew nothing about the the ninth tape recording. I knew nothing that Miltier had been interviewed by my partner a year before in 1982 on a civil rights investigation. My partner said nothing to me about it at all. And William Elliott worked with my partner a year before that in 82, and he said nothing to me, and we worked together extensively every day doing the workup on Miltier. Now, why in the hell was this stuff kept from me? When I go back in 93, back to 93, when all this stuff started and that, I was devastated. I was totally shocked to think that my own agency, the FBI, had covered this whole thing and delayed giving me, there was no proper investigation conducted in Dallas. They named Oswald, and once that was done, everything generated on Oswald, and Miltier was forgotten.
And then they killed their patsy, and Fletcher Prouty, who himself was the main liaison between the Pentagon and CIA Black Ops, he got literally, sent away to the North Pole so that he wouldn't be there when all this happened. And he explained how they use mafia, they use hitmen, they use right-wing veterans, and they had all these different teams, including more teams down the road if Kennedy would have escaped. They have just multiple hit teams ready to deal with it. They even had the military in the air above Dallas in case the public found out and things had to be suppressed. They had the corrupt, mafia-controlled Dallas Police Department all hooked up, heavily involved with intelligence. And it's just absolutely incredible that you were there, you tried to stop it, you were on the job, and then decades later, they declassify and release the fact that this guy was talking about killing him and where and how and when, before and after. This is incredible.
Alex, let me mention one thing to you that's very important. After we went into the archives in 99, it was later than that. It was in 2003 or something like that. We went into the archives and pulled the documents in that. I found a document in there that said in there that that the Atlanta office had contacted their agent in Thomasville, and he told them that Miltier was in Quitman, Georgia, at the time the assassination took place. And that was an outright lie, and it's a totally fraudulent document. The document was done, and the words were said, but it was not true. And my partner was the only one that was there, and I left him saying I was going to find Miltier. I was going to locate him if I could, and which we did. I checked him in the morning and at noon at night, and here he, at some time, or somebody saying that he did it, said that Miltier was in Quitman, Georgia, at the time of the assassination. There, in that book, High Treason, is a photograph of Miltier standing there looking at the presidential limousine moments before the president was killed.
That's right. I interrupted you, Agent Adams, before you got to that. So recap. You get this book, you open it up, and there he is, clear as day, looking at the president in the motorcade. Talk about that.
Sure. You can imagine when you investigate a person and you do a full background on him, and I walked up to him, like I said, and I took all this hate literature from him, which he was freely giving out in that. I spent a lot of time with this guy, and then when I finally took him into custody and took him back for interview and everything on the 27th, there was a lot of time together, and I know him 100%. And when I saw that photograph, it hit me like you said, like a stack of bricks hit me, and it blew my mind. I couldn't believe it, that here he is, because I couldn't locate him. And then I found out afterwards that on the same morning, on November the 22nd at 10 o'clock in the morning, before he was photographed there on Houston Street, he made a telephone call to Somerset in Miami and told him, "I'm in Jackrabbit country. Your friend is coming here, and you're not going to see him again." And then when I said, or you mentioned later on that Miltier was jubilant over it, he was. When he met with Somerset the following day after the assassination at the Jacksonville, Florida railroad station, he told him, he said, I told you I wasn't kidding. You thought I was kidding in that, but it was taken care of, just like I said it would be. So here is this guy very heavily involved and they take everything away from him and bury him into the archives and concentrate everything on Oswald, and Oswald never even fired a shot.
Well, another incredible issue is the police, both local and federal, were doing their job. You were on him. You've got the Florida police are on him. He's getting off the train from Texas, obviously, and he's saying, I told you. They got him 2 weeks before saying, we're going to kill him with a high-powered rifle out of a building. In Dallas, and then he gets back, and the undercover's there recording him, and he's like, I told you, boy. I mean, this is open and shut. Now you talk about Joseph Adams Miltier being a World War II sniper, being a really violent...
No, he wasn't. One of the four was.
One of the four.
Yeah, see, the meeting that took place in Indianapolis, and that Miltier was really the spokesman, and Somerset was the informant, and one of the other two persons was a sniper in the Second World War. And he said that he was willing to go up into the tree and give his life in that to take Kennedy out.
Amazing. So who was Joseph Adams Miltier? Because the news reported he was a really violent guy.
Well, it said in a report in that book, in High Treason, said he was one of the most violent men in the country. Here's another thing about it. My partner, who had investigated him a year before, said nothing to me about him ever being armed. And one of the most stringent rules that we have in the FBI is if you develop any information where there's a possibility of an agent getting harmed or hurt or killed, it's mandatory that you immediately put a caution out on the man and underline it in every single communication that you put out. And I knew nothing about him being armed. After I left, then he wrote a report in January of '64. And in that report, under the synopsis, he put in there that Miltier should be considered armed and dangerous because he has a .38 weapon with him. And I knew nothing about that. So here's my partner did everything he could against every proper bureau rule to protect me and the chief and everybody else. And they got rid of every bit of that information and gave none of it to me.
Whatever happened to Miltier?
Miltier had an explosion of a gas stove in his house, and the early reports were that he got killed because of that. But then I read subsequent reports after that, which said that he was burnt just slightly from the explosion of the gas, the stove, and that he was fine after that. He had been released by the hospital. They said there was nothing wrong with him other than having the minor burns in that to be treated. And he was fine. And then I'm not sure about this, but I believe it was like 74 that he finally passed away then.
Amazing. We're going to come back and do a few more minutes with you.
Okay.
Because you also, in some of the news reports I've seen, sir, you talk about how you finally got your original reports back out of the archives and they'd been altered. So that's even more evidence that there's a cover-up going on. We'll talk about it all coming up after this quick break. Retired FBI agent says Oswald didn't kill Kennedy. And they go on to say it's a lot more than conspiracy theories. It's documented fact. I mean, this is the police surveillance recordings, the informants, the feds. So you got the good ground floor FBI people and police and others trying to stop this. But up high, they block the investigation. They cover it up. And that was my next question. I had read that you had said that once you got into the archives, decades after, when they finally released this stuff, that your own FBI reports had been doctored.
What happened, my report doesn't exist. I mean, they eliminated the total report that I wrote up, and my partner, Royal McGraw, and a supervisor by the name of Charles Harding up in Atlanta, Georgia, they wrote two reports. One written by McGraw and one written by Charles Harding. And they took the material of all the people that I contacted and interviewed trying to locate Miltier and doing a full background on him, education-wise and where he worked and all the stuff that we had acquired in that. All of that was in their reports. The only thing that was in that report that had anything to do with Don Adams was that one sheet of paper of my interview of Miltier.
Well, sir, isn't the evidence of the cover-up, I mean, just more proof? I mean, look at how many people that witnessed the shooters on the grassy knoll, the green pickup truck. How many of them were murdered, killed? disappeared.
Over 300. I mean, there's been a novel written about and discussing solely the people that were involved in the Kennedy assassination, and they say that number is over 300 people now. And I just want to mention one thing that I don't want to forget to tell you, is that when I saw the Zapruder film, and I made that comment, hell, he wasn't shot from the back, he was shot from the front when he put his hands up to his throat net. Dr. Charles Crenshaw, who worked in trauma room 1 at Dallas Parkland Hospital, and that as soon as he looked at the president, he said, hell, he's been shot in the throat, he's got a bullet hole here. And then later on, they had to do a trach cut on him to open up his throat to put a tracheotomy in him. But he saw the bullet hole right away. There was no exit wound in the back. Then they found where the bullet had gone through the windshield of the limousine, and apparently that slowed down the projectile so it didn't go all the way through him, and it went into his throat and stayed in his body.
Yeah, that was in the original medical report, and then they had his brain at the National Archives, and then it got disappeared.
It disappeared, right.
In closing, sir, and I want to have you back up in the next month for a full hour with your great breadth of knowledge. We appreciate your patriotism, your love of the truth, and your courage. Knowing how many people they've murdered, do you ever get threatened? Or are you concerned that you're now really going public?
No, I'm going to tell you something, Alex. I've always said this. The good Lord picked me for this assignment, whatever it was. I mean, whatever it is. And if he decides he's going to call me, I'm going to go the way he wants, and I don't worry about that stuff.
And I would imagine you really learned that when you were in Korea.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I saw a lot there, and it was a heavy year. Went all the way to the Yellow River up to China. And it was an experience I never forgot, but it's something that taught me a great deal about life and how important life is.
You know who else was on the Yalu River but fighting the Japanese during World War II? E. Howard Hunt as a sniper.
Wow. Yeah, see, let me tell you something, Alex, so that you're aware of how I work in that. When I get to concentrating on my work in that, I don't dwell off into a lot of other people's work, because you could just go in forever and not really get the story. So I'm really concentrating to make the people aware of who Joseph Adams Miltier is. And that...
no, I agree with you, because your area of the investigation is conclusive. I mean, it's amazing. The website is adamsjfk.com. And let me say bye to you during the break. I look forward to setting you up for a full hour in the next month. In fact, we'll try to set that up with you right now, sir. Everybody check out his website. He's got some very informative DVDs with his testimony that's an important part of a historical record.